Educate Philippines recognizes that Filipinos highly value education. As a matter of fact, education is a non-negotiable aspect of our culture. Parents always prioritize their children's education above other things. Teachers dedicate their lives to imparting knowledge to the students the best way they can. Students demand relevant knowledge for their academic and professional success to enable them to contribute to national and global development. It is for these reasons that Educate Philippines offers its services to academic institutions in the Philippines to provide the right technology to teach and learn online. Educate Philippines exists to tackle the lack of LMS in institutions of basic and higher learning and the problem in connecting the teachers and students to the internet.
To succeed today, organizations need to adapt and evolve with new skills and capabilities, from machine learning to design thinking, blockchain to business skills. And the need is massive. 74% of organizations know that reskilling their workforce is important in the next 12 to 18 months, but only 10% feel ready to address this trend. At Skillsoft, our goal is to democratize learning. So we set out to create a new kind of platform based on a fundamental belief that every person has the potential to be amazing. The result? A digital learning platform driven by flexibility and personalization. It's powered by AI, but has people at its heart. Skillsoft Percipio helps learners accomplish goals, celebrate their journey, and unleash their edge. How does Percipio do it? It's all about the journey. Aspire journeys are pre-curated, role-based, and skill-based learning paths that help companies prepare employees for the high-demand roles needed today and tomorrow, like agile development, data science, cloud computing, and leadership development. AI makes it easy. Breadth of content is great, but you need curation and customization to make it useful. Our AI-driven homepage keeps things fresh, engaging, and relevant for each and every learner. Search in human speak. Percipio's search functionality uses Google BERT natural language processing AI, which means learners spend more time learning and less time searching. Badge Up. Learners celebrate, record, and socialize their achievements with verifiable digital badges that are theirs to keep. Over 5 million earned and counting. Seamless experience everywhere. Percipio lets users learn in whatever increment they have time for, bouncing between media formats, devices, and collaboration tools like MS Teams seamlessly, without losing track or progress along the way. They can even learn while in the flow of work with our embedded learning synchronized assistant, ELSA for short. Customization and integration. Administrators can customize learning tracks, post content from other providers, and integrate into any LMS. We make it easy to make it your own. Our users already love the results they're getting from Percipio. And that's just the beginning. As the market evolves, so will Percipio, with more capabilities, more integration, and more ease of use with every iteration. Each step brings us that much closer to our mission, to democratize learning and help organizations, teams, and individuals unleash their edge.
Hi, I'm Alex, and I'm here to talk about Educate. If you don't know what Educate is, well, it's a solution to the current educational problem here in the Philippines. It all started when the world got screwed over by the virus. No one was allowed to meet face-to-face. That includes classes. So Aldrin, the CEO of Educate, decided to develop a system that would help the Philippines with their educational problems. With his expertise working in Australia, he brought about Educate, a one-stop place for online learning to be a solution to the current problems of learners and educators. This includes a learning management system, hosting, maintenance, training, support, and many more to provide the right tools and expertise to make distance learning simple and easy. We believe that no Filipino students should be left behind. So, what are you waiting for? We welcome you to the Educate family. pace of information sharing feels daunting these days, but digital signage can keep your entire campus informed in just minutes. With digital signage, you can remotely manage a network of signs, share events, and announcements. Keep your campus safe by publishing your health protocols and emergency notifications, and help students navigate. If you choose to, various departments can have access to their own digital signage, specific to their audience and communication needs. Or, with a cloud-based system, you have the option of controlling your messaging from one location. Whether you are striving to support distance learning or eventually attendance at sporting events, or to draw attention to your esteemed guest speakers, digital signage can make it much easier. Several applications of digital signage in schools such as digital bulletin boards, educational content, digital directories, digital menu boards, financial literacy, and seasonal events. For more information, visit www.Intel-Soln.com, an exclusive partner of EarthServe Consulting and Solutions in the Philippines.
To succeed today, organizations need to adapt and evolve with new skills and capabilities, from machine learning to design thinking, blockchain to business skills. And the need is massive. 74% of organizations know that reskilling their workforce is important in the next 12 to 18 months, but only 10% feel ready to address this trend. At Skillsoft, our goal is to democratize learning. So we set out to create a new kind of platform based on a fundamental belief that every person has the potential to be amazing. The result? A digital learning platform driven by flexibility and personalization. It's powered by AI, but has people at its heart. Skillsoft Percipio helps learners accomplish goals, celebrate their journey, and unleash their edge. How does Percipio do it? It's all about the journey. Aspire journeys are pre-curated, role-based, and skill-based learning paths that help companies prepare employees for the high-demand roles needed today and tomorrow, like agile development, data science, cloud computing, and leadership development. AI makes it easy. Breadth of content is great, but you need curation and customization to make it useful. Our AI-driven homepage keeps things fresh, engaging, and relevant for each and every learner. Search in human speak. Percipio's search functionality uses Google BERT natural language processing AI, which means learners spend more time learning and less time searching. Badge Up. Learners celebrate, record, and socialize their achievements with verifiable digital badges that are theirs to keep. Over 5 million earned and counting. Seamless experience everywhere. Percipio lets users learn in whatever increment they have time for, bouncing between media formats, devices, and collaboration tools like MS Teams seamlessly, without losing track or progress along the way. They can even learn while in the flow of work with our embedded learning synchronized assistant, ELSA for short. Customization and integration. Administrators can customize learning tracks, host content from other providers, and integrate into any LMS. We make it easy to make it your own. Our users already love the results they're getting from Percipio. And that's just the beginning. As the market evolves, so will Percipio, with more capabilities, more integration, and more ease of use with every iteration. Each step brings us that much closer to our mission, to democratize learning and help organizations, teams, and individuals unleash their edge.
Hi, I'm Alex, and I'm here to talk about Educate. If you don't know what Educate is, well, it's a solution to the current educational problem here in the Philippines. It all started when the world got screwed over by the virus. No one was allowed to meet face-to-face. That includes classes. So Aldrin, the CEO of Educate, decided to develop a system that would help the Philippines with their educational problems. With his expertise working in Australia, he brought about Educate, a one-stop place for online learning to be a solution to the current problems of learners and educators. This includes a learning management system, hosting, maintenance, training, support, and many more to provide the right tools and expertise to make distance learning simple and easy. We believe that no Filipino students should be left behind. So what are you waiting for? We welcome you to the Educate family.
Good morning, everyone. I am Dr. Rose Yangco, and my topic for this morning is why conduct science activities in the new normal? My objective is to address the following questions. What are some of the science activities that can be done during the new normal? Another is, why is there a need to conduct these science activities? Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we were compelled to be on emergency remote learning, either through printed modules or online learning. What are some science activities which can be done in the new normal? Let us examine images showing some of these activities. The set of slides we are going to view pertain to an activity which will find out the effect of light on the growth of plants. The first step is shown here. You will see 3 plastic cups filled with soil, about 3/4 filled with soil. They are all the same size, and almost same amount of soil. Step 2, you will see that small seeds are being planted on the soil. In this particular case, the seeds are those of basil. In the Philippines, however, the most common seed that is being used is mango seeds. For step 3, since we don't want to expose the seeds, we are to cover the seeds with a small amount of soil. So this will be done to all the plastic cups with soil and seeds. In step 4, you will see that the soil with the seeds is being watered. And this will be done to all the 3 setups. In step 5, you will notice that the different containers with soil and seeds are exposed to different conditions. The one on the left is exposed to full sun or full sunlight. The one in the middle is exposed to partial sunlight. And the one on the right is to be placed inside a drawer. In other words, in the dark. Now, take note that all the 3 containers were exposed or are being exposed to the same conditions. The same container, same size, the same amount of soil, the same kind of soil, the same kind of seeds, and the same amount of water. So these are factors which are maintained constant. Now, in this particular slide, you will see the notebook, which will be used by the student for observation. There are actually 4 columns. The one on the left side, the first column, is very narrow, and you have the dates. The second column indicates full sun. The third column is labeled partial sun, and the last column is no sun, or in other words, in the dark. So the student will write the observations on this notebook. You will see here the setup on the 6th day. Starting from the left, full sun, in the middle, some sun or partial exposure to light. And on the right side, you have the one which is placed in the dark. Notice that the seeds have germinated. So in this particular case, the students can infer that light is not needed for the germination of the seeds. Water actually enables the seeds to germinate. So by doing this activity, the students can make some observations and then draw a certain generalization. On the 10th day, you will notice the differences among the 3 setups. The one on the left has plants with green leaves. They are shorter, but the stems are straight. The one in the middle has lighter green leaves. They tend to bend. They are a bit shorter in terms of stem. But the one on the right have longer stems. They are bent and the leaves are seemingly yellow. And on the 14th day, you will see the basic differences of the different setups. So the student is supposed to write all these observations and then make the generalization. So it's very important for the student to be taking down notes in terms of the color of leaves, the size of the stem or the length of the stem, the positioning of the stem, the orientation of the stem, and the length of stem, no? So that eventually the student can make the observation. Now take note, this can be done at home during this time when the students are actually uh, working at home away from the teacher. Now, how do we know that the students are performing the activity? Maybe we can make the students take pictures. Let's make sure that the student is side by side the picture, the plans, the setup, so that we are sure that they are the ones working and observing the setups.
Chichi, did you double tap?
Another activity which can be done at home, alone, is observing the different phases of the moon. So the students can be instructed to observe the moon, the lighted portion of the moon every night at a certain time, maybe for a month. It's very important that the student is given this assignment well ahead of time.
Tapos onti lang talaga yung noodles.
Well ahead of time. So in here, the student will be observing the size of the lighted portion of the moon. And he or she will notice that the size of the lighted portion is increasing or decreasing. And knowing that the moon does not have light of its own, then probably he or she will be able to explain the relation of the lighted portion to the position of the sun, which is actually shown on the right side in the diagram. Now this is the diagram here is presented just for us to imagine what the student will be observing. This is not the one to be observed by the student, although we see this diagram in most textbooks. Now, another activity is observing plants on a rock surface. Now, at the moment, you will see ferns, mosses, and maybe if you look closer, you will see lichens. Now, what are lichens? Lichens actually consist of a combination of fungi and algae. In other words, there is a mutualistic relationship between the two organisms. The algae are the ones producing food because they have chlorophyll, providing food for the fungi, while the fungi are the ones giving mechanical support to the algae. So both organisms are benefited by the relationship, and we call this mutualism. You will notice that the plants are found side by side. They are found on the rock at the same time. But initially, we know that the lichens, which are actually flat, you find them on rocks, old walls, and even on the barks of trees. They are flat on the surface. They are the ones that start the community on the rock. So we call the lichens the pioneers. Now, the moment there is a little bit of soil, there will be more moisture and mosses will come in, or they will be able to thrive in the area. Now, the mosses are very small. They are vascular plants, non-vascular, I'm sorry. They are non-vascular plants, meaning they don't have any structure for the conduction of water and conduction of food. In other words, no xylem and phloem respectively. On the other hand, if there are enough soil, ferns will grow as well as other plants. Now, ferns are vascular. They have conducting tissues like xylem and phloem. That is why they grow bigger. Now, what we see here on the rock surface is what we call ecological succession, meaning that different communities occupy the area at certain points in time, depending on the physical condition.
Sorry.
Another activity, this is now in physics, balancing a hammer on a ruler. Take note, the hammer is heavy and it is able to balance itself. So this is actually an activity on finding the center of gravity. Now what you see here is a chart pertaining to garden peas. Remember Gregor Mendel? He is considered as the father of genetics. And he worked on garden peas, known scientifically as Pisum sativum. In this particular table, you will see the characteristics of garden peas in terms of the seeds, the flowers, the pod, and the stem. In terms of the seed, the form can either be round or wrinkled. The color can be yellow or green. In terms of flower color, it's either white or violet. In terms of the pod form, it can be full or constricted. In terms of color, it can be green or yellow. The stem can either have axial pods or terminal pods. It can be tall or short. Now, based on the observations of Mendel, some characteristics are labeled as dominant, others are recessive. And so we see here, for example, the flower color. Violet is said to be dominant over white. In the case of seed color, yellow is dominant over green. Now, if you want to take, or if you want the student to perform an activity, he or she can have a simulation. For example, marbles can be used. If there are marbles which are yellow in color, there can be 100 marbles in one container, and another container can have 100 green marbles. Now, if the student draws a yellow marble and a green marble, this drawing of marbles can represent the sorting out of genes or alleles. And then when you combine them, you have a yellow and a green. But since yellow is said to be dominant over green, as studied by Mendel, then we will be able to observe only the yellow color, which is dominant over green. So in all the cases, because you have 100 yellow and 100 green in the two containers, all the combinations will be yellow and green. And therefore, the offspring will turn out to be all yellow. It will be actually more exciting if you have a combination of yellow and green. Let's say 50 yellow in one container and 50 green, and the same number of marbles, yellow and green, in another container. Now, if you draw a marble from one container, that will represent the allele from one parent. If you draw another from the other container, that will represent the allele for another container. And so if you put them together, let's say you have drawn green from one container and you have drawn yellow from the other container, the resulting offspring will be yellow because yellow is dominant over green. So if you sort out all this, but of course you have to return the marbles to the containers, you'll be coming up with 100 combinations, and out of the combinations, you can come up with the ratio of the offspring. So we call that a monohybrid cross because you are referring only to one characteristic. Of course, when you study genetics, you can have dihybrid crosses. You can have a Punnett square and be able to observe the different offspring. You can describe the offspring. Now, another activity is observing a pond ecosystem. Now, take note that there are different organisms, and the student can be made to list down the organisms found in the pond, as well as the physical factors that are observed on the pond. They can also try to examine the relationship of the different organisms. I actually assigned some of my graduate students to observe some of ecosystems within their yard. Because as we know, because of the pandemic, we are not allowed to go out. We should be careful in our movements. So one particular student was rather shy to share what he observed. You know what he observed? A compost. A compost inside a small container. And the main organism found in the compost is the African crawlers, the worms that are actively degrading biodegradable materials. But whether it's a pond ecosystem or a compost pit, you will find that there are both living and non-living organisms, biotic and abiotic factors. And you will notice the active interaction. The student will notice the active interaction. So there is so much to learn from the environment. Now, if the student will say, Mom, we don't have a pond in our yard, then you might give the student another option. Maybe a grassland, maybe a smaller container, even a potted plant. An ecosystem can be at the micro or at the macro level. So all these are possible. You don't have to insist that he or she observe a pond ecosystem. Now it says here, leaf chlorophyll test. You will notice on the left, on the upper left, a leaf covered with a black paper tape. The assumption here is when this leaf was attached to the stem of a plant, this portion was covered. And maybe several days lapsed before this leaf was picked from the plant. Then, of course, the tape has to be removed. It was placed on a test tube with alcohol, and the test tube was dipped in a water bath before uh, subjected to heat. Now, after this process, the leaf was removed, it was dried, and drops of iodine were placed on the surface. Now, take note, the upper and the lower portions are black. This is actually what we call the test for starch. So the upper portion and the lower portion are the ones which contain starch. So the student will now infer what happened. Because the leaf is the part of the plant that is able to produce food, so this part which was covered was not able to produce food. It was covered. It seemed to be placed in the dark. It was not exposed to the sun. And the sun is a very important factor in the process of food making or photosynthesis in plants. So this can be easily done at home, maybe with the supervision of the parent or an older sibling. So that is the leaf chlorophyll test to find out the presence of starch on the leaf. Now we have here a picture of the solar system. So here, it's not easy to observe the planets. It takes years for the planets, of course, to be observed at certain times. So what can be done is for the student to compare the different planets, maybe in terms of size, in terms of composition, in terms of its atmosphere, in terms of the number of moons, in terms of the presence or absence of rain or rings, and of course, in terms of distance from the sun. And maybe in relation to this, the time it takes to revolve around the sun. You can also ask the student to do a research about Pluto, which has been demoted before. Maybe they can find the status of Pluto right now, whether it is still part of the solar system and referred to as planet, just like before. Here. It says here, where can you find fish in a grassland? Take note of the label at the entrance. American Fossil Quarry. What is a quarry? It's a place which is being excavated because the rocks are being taken away for construction purposes. It says, welcome, stop and read COVID-19 notice. So if you have a cough, fever, feel ill or have an active COVID-19 diagnosis, for the safety of our guests and staff, we ask that you do not enter into the quarry at this time. Masks are encouraged. If this place is in the Philippines, it will say masks are required and face shields are required as well. So let's see what's going to happen in this area. This is actually a video.
So we're here at the American Fossil Quarry just outside of Cameron, Wyoming. We're just getting ready to go in. We're going to pay for 2 hours to dig for fossils, and we're looking to find some fossil fish. You see there's already spot one right there. That's what everybody's here doing, is chipping away at these rocks, separating the layers, looking for some fish. I think it's going to be a pretty fun day. Spend a couple hours here and see what we can find. Supposedly there's some pretty rare fossils that you can find here, which are kind of neat. So we'll get to it here in a minute and see what we find. So here we are. What are we doing, bud?
So we're going to find fossils.
Fossil what? Point to one fish in this rock and show me. Look right here. We're finding fish. There's a good one. We got another one right here we got to dig out. We got one over here we're going to dig out.
And then this one.
And we got a little guy here. The kids are having a blast. The wife's over there digging. We got a whole bunch of people. But we're having fun, huh? We found so many.
Yeah, this is my
So many, right? Here's Tanner's pile.
So
So this is fun for the kids to come out here, and the rocks are super easy to split apart.
maybe why
And then when you find one that's big and a rock that's huge, they'll come with a saw and cut them out.
Yeah, and this is mine.
That's one.
That's mine.
I like it. Look at that
That's
fish in there.
mine, and that's mine.
And there's a little
And
fish
this
there.
and then this is one of
And
these.
there's Colton's, and they found a really big fish, huh?
Yeah.
And we found a lot of cool fish. We're having fun. So at the end of our 2 hours, we're just kind of loading everything on a cart. Shannon found a cool fish fin. We've got some of them cut down. Most of them we're just going to take home and work on them at home. But this was big boulders when we started. Now it's little pieces. So we'll pack these home and see what we ended up with.
So they had a great time. So the kids were looking for fish. How come the fish fossil is found in an area which is supposed to be a grassland? So the students have to think and look for evidences and explain why there are fossils of fish in such an area. Considering that a fish is aquatic, so maybe they can look back and connect this with the original condition of the place, which is in Wyoming. That's in USA. Now the next one is a salt and pepper activity. So let's find out how it goes.
Do you see that? You guys saw that? You see how important it is to wash our hands? Okay, Isa, dip your finger inside the virus water. Okay. Did the virus move at all? Did any of the pepper flakes move?
No.
No, right? Okay. Now, Isa, take out your finger. Do you see any virus on your finger? Any pepper on your finger?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Now, we don't want the virus on our finger, right, you guys? So, Isa, can I ask you to dip your finger in soap, clean your finger. Okay? This is the importance of how we wash our hands. Now, Isa, does your finger have soap in it?
Yes.
Okay, now can you dip your finger back in the virus?
How did it move?
Do you see that? You guys saw that? You see how important it is to wash our hands?
Okay. So in that previous activity, the pepper actually represent the particles. The particles of pepper actually represented the viruses, the COVID-19 viruses. And so in the presence of liquid soap, there was movement of the pepper particles away from the finger. So that would explain the action of soap, the cleaning action of soap. So it's very important to wash our hands using soap to protect us from the virus. Actually, that activity shows surface tension, and that's a very important concept in science. So through that activity, the concept can be explained, and the reason why we have to clean our hands using soap is also explained. Now, in this particular picture, you see students as a group working on robots, designing robots. Of course, at this point in time, during this pandemic, group work is not possible. But the students can work on robots. They can design robots on their own. They can do this activity alone at home with the supervision of their parents or uh, older siblings. Now you will notice that the boy in blue jacket is holding on to a red robot. Now the girl in golden uh, blouse is actually holding on to another kind of robot. And the two other uh, kids are working on some other material. And they seem to be communicating to each other. So maybe there is less collaboration, but definitely there will be communication, especially when the students, after working on their projects, will be attending synchronous sessions with their classmates and their teacher, of course. Now you see here two kids tinkering with chemicals. They have their goggles. No? So while they wear goggles. But of course, in this particular case, there is a need for adult supervision. There are two kids again, but this can be done individually. They are designing a marble ramp. Take note of the blue object that is bent, the yellow ones on the carpet, and they will see, depending on the positioning of the ramp, the movement of marbles. Now, according to McClure 2017, children in their free play activities are capable of systems thinking. In other words, they know how things interact with each other. They are creative, they are collaborative, and they are able to communicate. In fact, they can work on projects similar to what the senior high school students in STEM are doing, but of course, at their developmental level. But they are capable of doing projects which can be um, exhibited, which can be signs of engineering work because they are gifted with creativity, collaboration, and ability to communicate. Now, why do we have to conduct science activities this time? Now, according to the K to 12 science curriculum, there are three domains in science learning. First, understanding and applying scientific knowledge. This is what we call the cognitive domain. If the students will not perform any activity in science, How will they understand? What will they apply if they did not learn the concepts? Now, another is demonstrating scientific inquiry skills. This is what we call the psychomotor domain. During activity, the students are able to observe, describe, compare, infer, draw conclusions, and so they will not be able to do this without any activity. And the other one is developing and demonstrating scientific attitudes and values, or the affective domain. Because they performed science activities, they understood the lesson, they will be able to apply, they have practiced the different process skills in science, and so they'll be able to develop and demonstrate scientific attitudes of accuracy, honesty, and the like. So these are very important in the performance of science activities. The development of the cognitive, the psychomotor, and the affective domains of science learning. Also, in the K-12 science curriculum, students are expected to be critical problem solvers. So, in the performance of activities, they meet problems. So, they have to practice critical thinking to be able to arrive at a solution to the problem. They become responsible stewards of nature because if they observe the ecosystem, they will notice if there are problems and they are in a better position to address the problem. In fact, the younger the students, the more they should be exposed to nature. In fact, they are more receptive. They can be environmentally sensitive. So they can be good stewards. They can take care of the environment. They can protect the environment. And they can probably influence their elders. Innovative or creative citizens. Notice the kids designing robots, orienting their ramps for marbles. They are innovative, creative in their own ways. Informed decision makers. They will be able to decide properly if they have done something, if they have gathered data, they know the concepts, and they will be able to apply these concepts in relation to problems they have to address. They can be good decision makers. And of course, effective communicators. Because they have already learned something, they have practiced process skills, they are in a better position to share what they have done. Now, Moreno and Tharp, 2006, say that effective science learning happens when the subject matter is engaging. I remember very well my students when I was teaching in the high school. The first year students were so excited the moment they saw me pushing a cart with all the materials for a science activity. I think most science activities are engaging. And we should give the students the chance to be engaged in doing these activities. That is the best way for them to understand the concepts. Also, they should be given the opportunity for guided inquiry. I will explain this later on. Guided inquiry. Experience with concepts and models in science. I'm sure there are models in some science classrooms, like there can be a human torso, there can be a model showing mitosis or cell division, there can be a model showing a dissected frog, a model of a flower showing the different parts, and others. So the students, when they perform activities, when they observe models, they learn better because they experience the concept. Accommodation of new knowledge. We know that students have prior knowledge, but if they encounter something new and the prior knowledge is in conflict with the new knowledge, then probably the students will have to think and find out which is the correct idea, the correct concept, and maybe the prior knowledge, which could be a misconception, can be corrected. Opportunity to communicate. Yes, if there are activities, there are observations to make, and the students will be in a better position to communicate what they have observed through the notes they have taken, the notes they have written in their notebooks. This is very important. Exposure to teachers with positive attitudes toward science. So it's very important that the teacher himself or herself is also excited about science, interested in science, interested to teach about science. Another is guidance through appropriate questions. We can ask questions which are considered higher order thinking questions. We can make them imagine, we can make them assume by asking questions like what if, why, things like those. Not questions answerable by yes or no. And then the last one, with an asterisk, is a rare opportunity to work with scientists. If there is a chance for the students to be immersed in a laboratory where scientists are working, they will be able to learn science more effectively. So immersion in a science lab is very important for effective science learning. Now let us focus on this approach. I mentioned this earlier. Uh, what, what is inquiry or inquiry-based learning? Inquiry involves asking questions, hypothesizing, conducting investigations, gathering data and analyzing them, drawing generalizations, and communicating results. Now, there are levels of inquiry, and there are three. This is as if you are climbing a set of stairs with 3 steps. Now, the lowest level is what we call structured inquiry. This is where the teacher provides the problem and procedure. And then the students, based on the observations, will now be organizing his or her data and will be drawing conclusions. Now, in guided inquiry, the teacher provides only the problem. So notice that there is decrease in the role being played by the teacher. In guided inquiry, the teacher provides only the problem. So that means the student will now be designing the procedure, the manner of investigation, will be observing, analyzing data, and drawing conclusions. Now, the third one, which is the highest level, is open inquiry. This is where the students or the student takes charge of everything, from the problem to the procedure, to the observation, analysis of data, and so on and so forth. Open inquiry, a very good example of open inquiry is the one performed when a student conducts a research or an investigative project. Now, it's very difficult to decide on a problem to work on, so the teacher should be there to provide guidance, maybe examples, models, so that the student will be able to choose a good problem to work at. But everything will now depend on the student. So, open inquiry is given only to students who are more mature, who have gone through structured and guided inquiry levels. Now, another reason for doing science activities, this is according to Dale's cone of experience. People generally remember, this is very important, 10% of what they read. Imagine, 10% of what has been read is remembered. Only that much, 10%. 20% of what they hear. Okay? So lecture. 30% of what they see. So if they go to a museum, well, they will remember 30%. 50% of what they see and hear. I think this is exemplified by a video because the video has visual and sound at the same time. So 50% is remembered. What about 70%? 70% of what they say and write. If you are able to communicate something, that means it has been part of you already. You have understood it. And of course, when you write, you reinforce what you know. I remember very well a classmate who writes notes, uh, prepares review notes, because according to him, he remembers what he is reviewing when he writes. And 90% of what they do, as in performance of science activities, they remember. So it's very important that the students are actively involved in science activities. This is to reinforce what the Dale's cone of experience says. According to Confucius, I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, I do and I understand. So this underscores that learning by doing is very important for understanding. Now, from the picture showing children working, we know that the young children have the potential to produce something worthwhile, to produce an innovation. They can be creative, innovative. And so, according to Benjamin Mays, a child must learn early to believe that she or he is somebody worthwhile and that she or he can do many praiseworthy things. So, in other words, we have to believe that the young child is able to do something. We should not undermine their capability. They can be very creative. They can be engineers and architects. And because we trust them, they will feel confident. They will be exhibiting self-efficacy, and they can do many worthy things. They can be the future scientists. they can do STEM just like our senior high school students. So these are my references. Thank you very much. This time, we have the question and answer portion.
Good morning. We are now ready for the questions. Let's find out from the chat box if there are questions. We are waiting for questions. I believe they are still writing. They are writing questions probably. I hope there will be some questions. While waiting for questions, maybe I can read some comments. This is from Oyi Ibanez. So much to learn for this webinar. So I hope you have learned something. There is a question from Michael Alan Batahi. I hope I have read the name properly. Why inquiry-based learning is important in learning? Okay. I hope I can be heard at this point in time. I'm wondering why there are two images here, a bigger one and a smaller one, but anyway, okay. Now, if you remember earlier, I actually defined inquiry-based learning and I said it involves asking questions, hypothesizing, performing investigations, gathering data, analyzing them, drawing conclusions, and communicating results. So this is very important because the student in doing inquiries is actually practicing the different process skills. When we say process skills, we mean observing, describing, comparing, inferring, measuring, and the like, and even all other higher order skills. So in that case, the students will be able to learn. So if they are able to perform activities and do investigations, then they are going to learn much. And we have underscored the importance of doing in learning. So I hope I have answered the question of Michael. Okay, thank you. He said they are able to hear me loud and clear. Thank you very much. There are comments from YouTube. This is from Care Apari Balasa. These activities are amazing, which can enkindle our students' critical and creative thinking. Amazing, fun, and informative. You know, with the remote learning condition, I, as an old teacher, learned a lot also. We can rely on learning resources in YouTube, in the internet. YouTube is very generous in sharing videos about different lessons and activities in science. So we can explore all these resources. Now this one is from Juliet T. Valencia. Thank you for this very informative event. You're welcome. I hope we will be able to explore some more. From Kier Apari Balasa, I think this is the second one. How about in bachelor's degree taking geography class, ma'am? What activities can you suggest? I think this is rather difficult. Geography. Let me see. When I was in the undergraduate class, I had geography. But I don't remember going out in the field to do some activities. Basically, what I remember is that we tried to predict weather conditions or climatic conditions considering the location of a place. So probably activities could center on exploring predictions. Like, for example, if a place is near a body of water, will this body of water affect the weather condition of the place which is actually along the coast? Well, not all the time, because it will depend upon the wind direction. If the wind direction is coming from the body of water, so the land will get much water. But if the wind direction is from the land to the water, then the opposite will be true. I think we have to look at the syllabus of geography to be able to imagine or design activities. But sure, there are activities to be done. I don't know if tourism is connected with geography. I don't know exactly. But geography, I suppose, is part of the social sciences, social studies in elementary. So I think much can be done, especially if we are able to move around, if we are not confined to our homes, if there is movement from one place to another, we can enjoy the benefits of the different, especially in the Philippines, there are so many places to visit. Okay, comment, Frida Vera, TY meaning thank you, UPZ and partners for this Dale's cone of experience and Confucius wisdom. Have a great day. Okay, question from Professor Maria Cecilia Zamora. Could you please suggest or recommend practical and meaningful strategies in teaching and learning about COVID-19? Thank you. Okay, so far, we have mentioned the role of that simple activity on salt and pepper, just to show the property, the cleaning property of liquid soap. So that's one particular activity. Another can be, this one, I have to acknowledge the idea. This came from the Smithsonian Institution. We attended one of their sessions, and one of the activities was about distancing, physical distancing. So in simple terms, the student is made to gather water and a piece of paper, maybe Manila paper, posted on the wall. And at different distances, the student was made to sprinkle water on the wall. Actually, the water being sprinkled on the wall represents the saliva or whatever is coming from the mouth of somebody speaking. And so, this would actually simulate transmission of viruses, organisms causing diseases. So, it can be pointed out that the farther the distance from the wall, there will be less sprinkling of water on the wall. So that's why we are supposed to maintain a distance of 1 meter or more from other people so that there will be lesser transfer of viruses and other saliva from our mouth. Of course, it was also pointed out that, what's this? Something about the contact tracing. Contact tracing. In contact tracing, it was pointed out that you have, for example, you have to figure out if the person is COVID-19 positive. You have to find out the contacts, no? And then it's like a chain. You figure out the associations of the different people involved. And in one of the sessions attended, it was mentioned that this is actually based on data analytics. I think it's complicated, but what is more important here is patience, I suppose. Okay, there is something here. Let me see if I missed anything. This is a question from Jesper Bayawa. I hope I have pronounced the surname properly. The level of science and math education in our country is low. What practical recommendation can you give to improve the quality of teachers and students in our country? Okay. The question sounds challenging. Recommendation. Of course, in terms of our performance in PISA, we are more or less at the bottom, no? We are bottom performers compared to other countries. In terms of the trends in international science and math, we are also not faring very well. Even in NSAT, in the national, what do you call this, achievement test, we are also performing low. So what is the problem? I know that as teachers, we are doing our best. We are doing our part. We are even doing graduate school so that we can improve ourselves. We are attending seminars, webinars this time. In other words, the great bulk of teachers are doing their part. We are improving. Maybe there is a need also to filter the kind of students entering into the College of Education. Let us check the quality of the inputs to the system so that we know that when they graduate, they will be able to pass the licensure examination. Now, on the other hand, the students have their role. If the teachers are doing their part and the students are not doing their part, then there is a problem. So I think what we need also is to motivate the students, provide engaging activities so that they will perform their part. They will be interested in studying, in doing science activities. So it's just like in dancing, the partners must be able to dance properly. The teachers and the students, both parties should be able to perform. Well, in the case of students, maybe as we should set the model. We should be positive towards science. We should be encouraging activities in science. Although it's difficult to be preparing materials for science, that is in the face-to-face mode. But in the remote learning mode, you can still request your students to perform activities. I am sure they can be monitored, but you have to choose activities which can be performed at home. Those activities that will require materials which are easily found at home. So I hope I was able to answer part of your question, because I think this can be a very lengthy challenge for us to address. No? So in the meantime, I think we can do that. Filter the entries or entrance into teacher education and motivate the students, provide them engaging activities. A question from John Carlo DC Oliquino, familiar, a former student. Hi, Dr. Yangco. Thanks for your inputs. If a teacher wants to have a group activity and use Zoom or Google Meet for breakout sessions, what is the best way to assess their performance? Okay, so maybe you can prepare a rubric. The rubric can have several criteria, and there can be several scores with a description. The students, of course, should be obliged to evaluate their partner or group mates in the breakout session. I don't know if it's possible for us to see. I think it's possible for us to see the students while they are working. I think we know if they are engaged. I remember that in giving an entrance examination, there can be a camera trying to monitor if the students are doing their part honestly. Okay, so I hope I was able to address that. Question from Patricia Nicole Benisano. Good morning, ma'am. Paano po kapag nagko-conduct na experiments at home and need po ng laboratory apparatus at kailangan po ng accurate measurement? Ano po pwede nilang gawing alternative? Okay. Maybe because the students are not allowed to go to school as much as possible. And in fact, teachers are not allowed to, or if ever, they are allowed to enter the premises within a limited period of time. So I think lab activities in school are not possible. They can resort to improvisation. Like if they want to measure, what materials at home can be used to measure? Measuring cup in the kitchen? You can have a small cup for measuring medicine. Well, that can be done, probably. If you want to make use of a glass funnel and there is none, you can probably cut the upper portion of a Coke bottle, a plastic bottle, and make that into a funnel. But of course, a funnel is available in the kitchen. Okay, there's another one. I hope I can still catch this one. Oh, sorry. It moved too fast. Okay, question from Shena K. Torres, a former student of mine. Hi, Dr. Yangco. Thank you for this very informative webinar. My question po is, how do you motivate students who are affected by the recent calamities, such as typhoons or the ongoing pandemic? Yes, we know there are problems. In fact, in internet connectivity, some do not have electricity. At this point in time, we have to be more understanding. We have to put ourselves in the shoes of the students. Maybe we can extend deadlines. We can tell them that if they are not able to do the work right now, you are willing to give some more time for them to work on the activities. What is important is, as much as possible, the activities are performed within the deadline, or just like what UP did, we did not give any grade of incomplete. We did not give a grade of 4 or 5. We just left the space for the grade blank so that eventually the student can actually complete. Maybe provide more inputs and complete all the assignments. So I hope I was able to address this part of the question. It's very important to be sensitive to the needs of our students. Question from Maria Carmela Giliado. Good morning. We provided activities of the same kind in our F2F classes. Sorry, hindi ko po alam ang F2F classes. Face-to-face, I'm sorry. Yes, definitely. In the context of remote learning, how do we ensure that learners themselves perform the task and not the household partners? Oo nga, ano? Oo. It's true that we let the students perform these activities even before, because not all these activities can be performed in school. So probably one that we can do is we let them take a video of what they are doing. I think it's all right if there is assistance from a helper, from a parent. What is important is the students are working and they understand what they are doing. And maybe you can ask the students to explain in the synchronous session so that you will know if he or she performed the activity. You can triangulate by asking more questions and finding out what has really transpired. Okay, another comment. Let's see. This is comment from Julia T. Valencia. I like the innovative presentation on the exposure of plants to external factors. The traditional is the exposure of mango seeds to darkness and sunlight. Yes, definitely. It has been with us since time immemorial. I did this when I was in the elementary, and we are learning a lot from these activities. So no problem with the kind of seed. What is important is you have the same kind of seeds in all the setups. Mongo, maybe you can explore other seeds, no? But mongo is one of the best in terms of time of germination and growth. Comment from Frida Vera. Thank you po, ma'am, for reading my message. Hopefully this webinar will improve the country's standing in this subject. Maybe we have to have more because one is not enough probably. Comment from Vicente Olea Jr. Salamat po, kahit di po ako science teacher, I learned a lot. I got a lot of very informative learnings or activities which I can be able to use when I teach children in their assignment in school. I think that would be all, ma'am. No more questions po. Thank you po. I think, okay. So that's about all. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone, for participating in this webinar. We treasure your presence, your comments, your questions, and we hope to see you and hear from you again next webinar or in future activities, maybe in conferences, whether national or international conferences. We welcome your presence. And I hope you have learned a lot. So let us just remember that it's very important for us teachers, whether we are science teachers, English teachers, teachers of other disciplines, or teachers of students in special education, we have a great role to play in order to motivate students. Let us give them engaging activities wherein they can draw concepts which can be applied and can be the basis of their future decisions. So again, thank you very much and good morning, everyone.